Welcome to Esoterica and Nonsense, a podcast where we discuss myths, legends, folk tales, fairy tales, supernatural phenomenon, and religions from around the world. I am your host, Dr. Pepper, Pepperbell, Annabelle. I go by many names, a man of 1,000 names, and I am coming to you here officially at the spring equinox. Okay, hear me out. Usually the spring equinox is March 21st. However, there was a leap year, and from what I've heard from the astrologers in my life, today is the first day of Aries season, and it is also the spring equinox, and I'm fucking excited about it. Why? Aries season is my favorite. Why? Because I'm an Aries. There it is. We're nuts. We're megalomaniacs, and I live for it, and I love it. Shout out to all my Aries, love you. And shout out to Geminis, because you guys get it, we're insane. I'm so excited. In honor for my birthday season, all of Aries season, we're gonna talk about my absolute favorite story, or collection of stories, I should say, which is the 1001 Nights. Buckle up, make yourself a cup of tea, get nice and cozy, and settle in, because I'm gonna tell you some of the best stories you have ever heard in your life, and all you have to do is sit there and like it. So, before I get into details, if you like this podcast, please subscribe, please comment, please like. Thank you. You're appreciated. I also have merch. It's live. You can see it in the description notes of this episode. And let's dive right into it. So, the 1001 Nights, or as a lot of Western English speakers know it as, the Tales of the Arabian Nights, is a collection of stories that allegedly trace all the way back to the Mesopotamian age, ancient India, ancient Iran, Iraq, and the golden age of Persia. So as time went on, these stories kind of snowballed. And first of all, where does that term snowballed come from? Because it doesn't make any sense. I guess it's like when you build a snowball. Who cares? But the point is that as time went on, these stories would be retold, and they would collect other local stories, and they became this brilliant collection of stories. Can you guys hear the trees? The leaves are like in the wind, and the leaves are, what's that word? Rustling, right? Is that what you say? The rustling of the leaves? I think so. Okay. So, what is sad, and I feel like I talk about this all the time, but when the tales of the 1001 Nights were first brought to the attention of the Western and Europeanized world, it was translated by a Frenchman in the 1700s. His name was Antoine Galland. Basically, this French guy found out about these stories, and he translated them into French. But classic, he changed so much of the stories to appeal to the French audiences. And the meat of these stories was pretty similar, but he just took a whole bunch of liberties and changed these stories, which were so good. But that's how we get stories like Aladdin's Lamp, Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, Sinbad the Sailor, all of these iconic stories that we may either know or have heard referenced, right? And that was in the 1700s, but these stories have been around for over 1,000 years. And like I mentioned, some of these stories are very possibly derivative of stories in oral traditions as far back as the Mesopotamian era. These stories are old, and obviously as they traveled around ancient Persia, India, China, details changed, motifs changed, but a lot of these stories are so fucking old, and I'm telling you, they are crazy. So with that, that's kind of all you need to know. I am going to be retelling these stories, and I just want to preface and just be very clear that I'm telling this in my voice, right? All of these stories, as with all stories from an oral tradition, usually have a classical cadence and a beats and phrases and catchphrases that would be considered customary, right? Oral traditions have their own rhythm, and I am paraphrasing this. I've read these stories, and I'm going to be telling them to you. I'm going to keep the details correct, but of course this is in my voice. Okay, let's get to it. I'm gonna have a sip of my tea. 1 second. Okay, children, let's fucking do it. Many moons ago, in the islands of India and China, there was a Sasanian king. Sasanian refers to the Persian Empire between the years 224 and 651. So this is ancient Persia, okay? So there was a king, a Sasanian king. He was a master of armies, guards, servants, slaves, and he had 2 sons. Both of his sons were champion horsemen, but his eldest son was just a little bit better. He ruled over the lands with justice, and he was very loved by his subjects, of course. His elder son was named Shariyar, and his younger son was named Shah Zaman. Both brothers ruled over their respective kingdoms with justice and were also adored by their subjects, like their father. One day, the elder son, King Shariyar, longed to see his brother. It had been 10 years since he had seen his brother. So he summons his vizier, and he demands that his vizier visit his brother's kingdom and have him come for a visit. So the vizier visits Shah Zaman, and he invites him to visit his brother's kingdom. Zaman agrees, and he prepares all of his things to go visit his brother. He sets up tents outside the city. These tents have food, water, provisions for the journey, camels, mules, servants, guards, everything. And so that night he leaves to spend the night in the camp in the outskirts of his town so that in the morning they can leave to go visit his brother. However, at midnight, he realizes that he forgot a jewel that he was going to give as a gift to his brother Shariyar. So at midnight, he returns to his palace to retrieve this gift. And as he enters his bedroom chambers, he discovers that his wife is in bed with a eunuch. Okay, pause. In this point in Persian history, it was customary to have slaves. Often, actually, these slaves were from Africa, and they would castrate them so that they would be, like, quote unquote, not considered men. So from what I've heard and the research I've done, that in the Islamic tradition, a woman would never show her hair to a man unless it was a family member or her husband. But as eunuchs were not considered real men because they were castrated, they were seen like as a caste below. But not surprisingly, in a lot of these stories, there is a lot of themes of women having sex with these enslaved men, and it is very clear that there is some fetishizing happening. Also, there is like a lot of racism at play, but I just wanted to throw that out there because eunuchs are a really big theme in these stories, and that is just like an important historical tidbit that is an important thing to remember as these stories continue, of like how for a man in Persia at this time, for their wife to be sleeping with a eunuch is extra offensive, because not only is he not a real man, but of course his skin is darker and he is a slave, right? There's all of these social layers of sexism, racism, and male hierarchies, right? Okay, so back to our story. Shah Zaman finds his wife in bed with a eunuch, and he draws his sword and beheads both of them. He's gutted. He's upset. His feelings are hurt. His wife just cheated on him, and he murdered her. So, the next morning, Shah Zaman leaves for his brother's kingdom with his posse. And on arrival, King Shariyar greets him. He's so excited that his brother is visiting. He's decorated the whole city. He's prepared feasts. He's hugging his brother, kissing him on the cheek. But Zaman is pretty preoccupied. He can't stop thinking about his wife. He can't stop thinking about that his wife cheated on him. And I think obviously he's thinking about the beheading. So he's sick to his stomach. Like, he can't even focus. He's pale. He's not hungry. Like, he is just out of it. And so obviously his brother Shariyar assumes that like something's wrong, but he assumes that his brother is just preoccupied with his kingdom. You know, he's never gone on a long trip like this before, so he just lets his brother be. He doesn't bother him. So as a couple days pass, Shariyar keeps trying to cheer up his brother, and eventually he invites him on a hunting trip. And Zaman is just not in the fucking mood, so he refuses. He would rather stay home and just sulk in his bedroom like a sad boy. So King Shariyar goes on a hunting trip with his guards and leaves his brother Zaman behind. So as Zaman sits alone in his room, he peers out the window, and his window peers into the courtyard of the palace, which has a fountain in the center. And in the afternoon, he sees 20 slave girls enter the courtyard, followed by 20 slaves. And in the middle of all of this, he sees Shariyar's beautiful wife, right? This would make her queen. So he's looking out the window, and they all get ass naked and they start fucking, and they're drinking wine, they're kissing, they're laughing, napping by the fountain all day long. And Zaman is just watching, like he just can't look away. And toxic, what is his conclusion from this? He feels relief. He thinks, oh, thank God. Like, I thought my life was bad, but obviously this is so much more serious. And like, I pity my brother, but also like, I feel great. So he has a huge weight lifted off his shoulders, knowing that he doesn't have the worst like scenario in cheating. Like, I don't know. This is, I can't really relate to this thinking. But alas, Zaman feels great. So with this huge burden lifted off of his shoulders, he starts eating food, he's drinking, he's getting the color back in his face, his cheeks are rosy, like he's super happy. So that evening, when his brother Shariyar returns, he notices that Zaman is in a great mood and his whole vibe has changed. So finally, Shariyar asks, like, what has been up with you, dude? Like, why have you been so sad? What's been going on? So Zaman tells him the story about his wife cheating on him and that he beheaded her and her lover. But he doesn't have the heart to tell his brother why he feels better. But his brother is like, you have to fucking tell me. Like, why do you feel better now? What changed? You have to fucking tell me. And so Zaman tells him. He tells him all the details. He tells him that his wife was out in broad daylight having sex with these men, and that there was, you know, basically a whole orgy happening. Shariyar is so fucking upset, but he demands to see this with his own eyes. He can't believe it. So Zaman suggests that they stage a fake hunting trip. So they instruct all of the guards and the servants to set up tents outside of town, and King Shariyar in fact goes to one of the tents, and he demands everyone to leave one of his tents and to not check on him. And so he secretly sneaks back to the kingdom and goes into his brother Zaman's room. And sure enough, the next day around midday, they watched the 20 slave girls and the 20 slave men, followed by the queen herself, have a full-on orgy in broad daylight by the fountain until the afternoon call for prayer. I just want to mention that in the version I was reading, the first orgy, they seem to have been fucking through the afternoon call for prayer, because they didn't mention the afternoon call for prayer. But in the second orgy, on the second day, they stopped for the afternoon call for prayer. I just want to throw that out there, which is great. We love that. Okay, so obviously Shariyar, oh, the peppers are barking. That means it's a tea break. Okay, I'll drink some more tea. Okay, so Shariyar obviously is so fucking upset. His feelings are hurt. Obviously more than anything, his ego is destroyed. And he's just devastated. So he tells his brother, there's no point of being alive. Classic. There's no point of us even ruling over our kingdoms. Classic. And he says, why don't we just leave? Why don't we just wander the land, wander the earth until we find a man with a worse fate than ours? This is so toxic. If this is what you need to feel better about yourself, to find a man with a worse life than yours, y'all are tripping. But alas, Zaman's yeah, you're right, brother. Men. And I just want to reiterate that, oh, come on, Peppers. We're recording an episode right now. Can you guys relax, please? Those are the neighbors' Peppers, and sometimes I get upset. I don't really know why, but they kind of have wiener bodies. They have really short legs and white fur with spots. They kind of remind me of Shiloh, if Shiloh was a little bit more plump with shorter legs. You know what I'm talking about? I think you do. Okay, so yeah, Shariyar is we're basically better off dead, so let's just wander the land aimlessly until we find a depressing other dude with a depressing wife. So they literally do that. These two royal men leave their kingdoms and they wander the earth aimlessly for 3 days and 3 nights like a couple of losers until they come to a tree in a meadow. Beautiful. And nearby in the distance, they can see the ocean, and they notice that there's a spring of water right by the tree. So they sit down, they drink from the spring, and they have a little nap under the tree. But after a short while, they feel the winds turn, and they notice that the ocean is extra turbulent and dark, and out from the ocean emerges a tall black pillar towering into the sky, and it begins to move closer and closer to the seashore, and then closer and closer to the meadow. So the brothers panic and they climb up into the tree to hide. And as this column gets closer, they realize that it is, in fact, a giant jinn with a large skull and a broad chest, carrying a little treasure chest on its head. How cute is that? Very cute. So the jinn sits directly under the tree that the brothers are sitting in. The jinn takes the little magical treasure chest off of his head, and he opens it, and out of the chest he pulls out a box, and he unlocks the lock on the box, and out comes a slender girl radiant like the sun. And there's a direct quote from the book that I added in, which is this little poem about her beauty. She shone in the darkness, and day appeared. As the trees shed brightness over her, her radiance makes suns rise and shine, while as for moons, she covers them in shame. When veils are rent and she appears, all things bow down before her. As lightning flashes from her sanctuary, a rain of tears floods down. Are you kidding me? So yeah, she's hot, right? She's fucking hot. And so the jinn takes her out of this box, and he's holding her on his little hand, and he says to the girl, "Mistress of the nobly born whom I've snatched away on your wedding night, I want to sleep for a while." So the jinn promptly falls asleep, and the girl immediately peers up into the tree that the brothers are hiding in, and she gestures for them to come down and not to fear the jinn. The brothers begged not to come down. They're terrified of this jinn, but the girl threatens them, and she says if they don't come down, she will awaken the jinn, who will surely give them the cruelest of deaths. She tells the brothers that they must lie with her, as in like fuck her, as hard as they can, or she will wake the jinn. Both brothers are terrified of this proposal, and they beg not to do it, but alas, there is no relent, and they both take turns lying with her. And after they are done, she tells them to stand up, and she produces a purse. And out of the purse, she takes out a long string with 570 signet rings on it. 570. She tells them that each ring belonged to a different lover who had basically had sex with her while she was in the care of this jinn. And just for some background, a common theme in a lot of these stories is that jinn will abduct beautiful human women that they find beautiful and basically keep them as like their like forced girlfriend. So essentially, if any human man was to have sex with this woman, the jinn would surely kill them out of jealousy and, you know, ownership over this woman. So she basically tells them that while she's been like a slave of this jinn, that she has actually had sex with 570 men and had them all give her their family ring as like she basically just extorts men. So now she demands for them to give her their ring. So now 570 has turned into 572. Iconic. She explains that even though the jinn had stolen her on her wedding night and sealed her in a box, and that box within a chest with 7 locks on it, and hid her at the bottom of the tumultuous ocean, that no matter what, when a woman wants something, nothing can get the better of her. Now, I want to add in that in the version I was reading, they added in this really sexist poem that like you can never trust a woman because like women will use their sexual wiles to like get the better of you, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just so over that trope. But I do think it is true that women who are the literal copy and paste of the creator, the womb, that if a woman really wants something and she sets her mind to it, nothing can stop her. I do believe that. So thank you. So obviously at this point, the two brothers are fucking dumbfounded. They are like terrified of this woman, but they conclude that this powerful jinn, who is literally being played like a fucking fiddle by this human woman, is living a much worse life than they ever were, I guess. But that's how they feel. So with that, they return promptly back to Shariyar city, and they behead his wife and all of the slaves involved in the orgy. Brutal. And so, After that day, every night for 3 years, King Shariyar would marry a virgin, deflower her on their first night, and kill her the next morning. This is full-on PTSD. PTSD is real, people, and this is crazy as fuck. This is why hierarchies are not cool, because when someone's at the top of the hierarchy, they really can just do whatever the fuck they want, and like, this is fucking crazy. Granted, like, he needs some time, he needs some therapy. Like, cheating is not chill, lying is not chill, but like, this is fucked up. This is so fucked. So obviously, as you can imagine, the citizens of Shariyar city are literally panicking. Like, women are dying every day. And granted, like, these are the most beautiful young women in the kingdom. Like, everyone's fucking bugging. So naturally, families with daughters are starting to flee the city, especially ones with pretty daughters, because they just want nothing to do with this. So very quickly, I mean, I guess not very quickly, they have 3 years. That's like over 1,000 women, right? But right around the 3-year mark, they start running out of eligible brides. And so one morning, King Shariyar asks his vizier to bring him another bride as usual. And that day, the vizier goes out to the city and he cannot find a single woman to marry to the king. And so he returns home. He's distressed, he's stressed, he's pressed. He is thinking about what fate will befall him when he tells the king that he has not a single woman for him to marry. So the vizier has 2 daughters. The eldest is named Scherazade, and the youngest is named Dunyazad. Scherazade is very well read, very well educated. She is the vizier's daughter after all, and she has studied histories and stories for many years. She has read over 1,000 volumes, and she has read the writings of poets and kings, right? So this bitch is hella smart and, a scholar, truly. So she sees her dad literally crying and distressed, and she asks him of his troubles. She asks him, "What is going on, Dad?" And her father tells her about the situation. And after hearing, she tells her father to marry her to the king, for she has a plan. Her father refuses naturally. He's like, there's no way that I'm letting the king murder my brilliant daughter, no. And he says, please, I can't let you do this. I don't want you to fall to the same fate of the donkey and the bull. And Scheherazade says, what is the story of the donkey and the bull? And so he says, sit, I will tell you. So, there once was a merchant with much wealth and many animals. He had been granted by Allah the ability to speak to beasts and birds. He lived in the country. Oh, hi, Peppers. He lived in the country and had at home a donkey and a bull. The pepper hates this story. I'm gonna have a tea break because the pepper's barking. Okay, guys, I'm gonna keep reading. Why don't you have a little nap? Go to bed. So, this wealthy merchant lives in the country, and at home he keeps a donkey and a bull. One day, the bull went into the donkey's quarters and saw that the donkey's room had been swept clean and the floor had been cleaned with water. He had a fresh bowl of water, and in his trough he had barley and straw to eat. And the donkey was there lying in peace, relaxing. And the bull was jealous because the donkey sometimes would be taken out on errands, but after that, the donkey would get to return home to its clean quarters and relax. So one day, the bull sees the donkey And the bull says, "Congratulations, donkey. Here I am, exhausted, working every day, and you just get to relax to your heart's content and eat your barley and just chill." And the donkey says, "Well, why don't you switch it up? And the next time that they try to take you outside to work in the fields, just don't get up, even if they beat you. And when they bring you your food, don't eat. Just pretend to be sick, and you'll definitely have a few days of rest." So the bull's like, "That's a brilliant idea." However, the merchant overhears all of this. So the next day, the herdsman comes in to fetch the bull. But the herdsman realized that the bull was sick. So he reports back to the merchant, and he says, "I can't do my work today because the bull is sick." And the merchant, of course, knows exactly what's going on. So he assures the herdsman. He says, "Okay, don't worry. You're going to get your work done. You're still going to plow the fields. You're going to fetch the donkey instead and continue your regular day of work." So the herdsman gets the donkey. He plows the fields. And that evening, when the donkey comes home, the bull thanks him. But the donkey is bitter and gives no reply, because the donkey never thought in his wildest dreams that he would be used as a replacement for the bull. So the next day, the same charade continues. The bull pretends to be sick, and the herdsman goes again for the donkey and takes him out to plow the fields until evening. The donkey returns home with a neck that has been rubbed raw, and he is almost dead tired. And the bull thanks the donkey again, but this time the donkey is full of regret and is pissed. So the donkey tells the bull that the master is preparing to have the bull slaughtered if he does not get well again soon. So the bull thanks the donkey again, and the merchant, of course, overheard everything. So the next morning, the bull wakes up, acts very healthy, and is taken into the field. And the bull notices that the merchant is watching. So the bull puts on a little show of healthiness. He flourishes his tail, he farts, and he gallops off. The merchant thinks this is so funny that he laughs and laughs. He laughs so hard that he falls on the ground. And his wife is confused, and she demands that her husband tell her what is so fucking funny. And he tells his wife that, he says, "Babe, I can't tell you why I'm laughing because it is a secret. And if I tell you this secret, I will die." And his wife says, "I don't give a fuck. Like, why are you holding secrets from me? Like, are you laughing at me? I'm convinced you're laughing at me. You have to tell me." And finally, the merchant relents. He agrees to tell his wife his secret that he can talk to animals, as now he is already 120 and he's lived a long life. So he gathers his kids, he sets up a will for his children, he calls his family and his neighbors, and he tells everyone to gather as he tells them his big secret, and after he shall die. Meanwhile, just as the merchant is about to tell his friends and family his secret, he overhears his dog talking to his rooster. His rooster has 50 hens, aka 50 wives, and the dog is gossiping to the rooster about what the master is about to do. The dog is explaining that the merchant is basically, out of pressure from his wife, going to tell his lifelong secret and thus die after. And the rooster laughs because the rooster has 50 women, and he says, like, how does this man only have one wife and can't even like control her? If I was him, I would go pick some mulberry branches and beat her and basically have her shut up. So the merchant is like, that's actually a really good idea. So the merchant aborts his mission. He goes outside and picks some mulberry twigs, and he takes his wife into their bedroom and he starts to beat her until she is faint. She begs for forgiveness. She kisses his feet. She says, I take it back. I take it back. But like, you don't have to tell me. And she never asks her husband again to hear about this secret. And so they continue to live in peace. I'm sorry, this is just, it's just so fucked up. Damn, my neighbors are mad. You guys, why are you barking? The peppers just can't stop barking. Okay, I had to close the window. I just love having the breeze and all the birds chirping, but the peppers just were having a moment. Okay, so after beating his wife and quote unquote putting her in her place, the couple continues to live on in peace. The vizier explains to his daughter that he says, "In this moment, I must treat you as the merchant treated his wife." Really what the dad is saying is like, don't make me like beat you. Like I can't let you marry this king. So Scherazade listens intently to her father. And after all of this, after this like bizarre intimidation tactic, she tells her father, listen, like, I don't really care about what you have to say. I am going to marry the king because I have a plan. But trust me, Papa. So finally, the vizier gives in and he gets his daughter ready to go to the palace. Meanwhile, Scheherazade makes plans with her younger sister, and she tells her younger sister that once she is taken into the king's chambers, that she will summon her. And once her sister enters the king's chamber, and after the king has deflowered her, that she shall ask Scheherazade to tell her one last story before she is executed the next morning. So, Scheherazade is taken to the palace. She is married to the king. They enter his chambers, and before they can get to business, she starts crying. And she begs the king to have her sister summoned so that she can say one last goodbye. So the king says, fine. And they call her sister in. And this is just such an odd detail, but I think it's worth mentioning. While the younger sister, Dunyasad, waits at the end of the bed, the king deflowers Scheherazade, which is brutal. But after finishing, Dunyasad follows through with the plan, and she asks her dear sister to tell her one last story before she meets her end. And so Scheherazade says, "It would be my greatest pleasure if the king would allow." And the king, who has been doing this charade for 3 years and honestly would just love to hear a story, obliges. So Scheherazade begins. Scheherazade tells the story of the porter and the 3 ladies. There once was an unmarried porter who lived in the city of Baghdad. One day, as he was standing in the market, waiting for someone to use his services, a woman came up to him wrapped in a silken, beautiful shawl with a gorgeous ribbon floating off of it into the breeze. She had embroidered shoes fringed with gold thread. And when she raised her veil, he could see beautiful dark eyes with eyelashes and eyelids so soft and perfect and symmetrical. And she said in a very sweet voice, "Please take your basket and follow me." So, almost as if he was in a dream, he to himself thinks how lucky he is. And he begins to follow this woman through the market as she goes shopping. And she picks up an olive-colored jar filled with wine, and she gives it to the porter. She then goes to the fruit stand and she buys Syrian apples, quinces, Omani peaches, jasmine, water lilies from Syria, autumn cucumbers, lemons, sultani oranges, scented myrtle, privet flowers, chamomile blossoms, red anemones, violets, pomegranate blooms, and she puts it into the porter's basket. And now she goes to the butcher's shop where she gets 10 ratils of meat, which is a increment. And then she has the meat wrapped in banana leaves and she gives it to the porter. Then they go to the grocer and she buys pistachio kernels, Tahama raisins, shelled almonds. She gives them to the porter. Next they go to the sweetmeat shop and she buys a bowl filled with sugar cakes, donuts stuffed with musk, soap cakes, lemon tarts, miamuni tarts, Zainab's combs, sugar fingers, and Kari's snacks. She piles all of this into the porter's basket and she says, "Hurry up." And so now they go to the perfume cellar where she buys 10 types of scented water, including rose water, orange flower water, water scented with water lilies, willow flowers, sugar loaves, a bottle of musk scented rose water, a quantity of frankincense, aloe, musk, and Alexandrian candles. And she puts all of these into the basket. And now she has the porter follow her to a beautiful house that overlooks a courtyard. It has 2 tall pillars and the door is decorated with ebony leaves plated with red gold. The girl stops at the door. She raises her veil and she knocks lightly. And the porter stands behind her, feeling like he's dreaming. He can't believe how beautiful this woman is, how extravagant all of the things that she has bought. And the door opens and he gasps as he sees that the person who opens the door is a woman who is more beautiful than the first. She's of medium height. She has gorgeous boobs, a well-proportioned body, radiant brow, red cheeks, eyes rivaling those of a wild cow or a gazelle. Her eyebrows were like the crescent moon. She has cheeks like red anemone flowers, a mouth like the seal of Solomon, coral red lips, teeth like chamomile blossoms, a gazelle-like neck, her bosom like an ornate fountain, her breasts like twin pomegranates. She had an elegant belly and navel. So he is like, he cannot believe it. Like, this is the hottest woman he's ever seen. So he almost drops the basket. He's like, oh my God. And so the girls bring him inside. He follows them in. The women start unpacking the basket and he notices how beautiful this house is. There's this incredible courtyard. There's ornate carvings. There's chambers. There's sofas everywhere, wardrobes, cupboards, curtains. Everything is artisan. And in the middle of this courtyard is a large pool filled with water. And there's a couch made out of juniper wood that's studded with ornate gems and crystals. And it has a mosquito net suspended over it made out of red satin and buttons made out of pearls that are bigger than hazelnuts. Like, are you kidding? This is heaven. Take me there. I'm trying to live there with these hot girls. So as he's taking this all in, another woman emerges out of the home, and she is more beautiful than the other 2. She is more glorious than the moon, with the character of a philosopher. Her eyes are bewitching, with eyebrows like bent bows. Her figure slender, straight like the letter Aleph. Her breath has the scent of ambergris. I don't know what that means. Her lips are carnelian red, sweet as sugar. Her face would shame the light of the radiant sun. She was like one of the stars of heaven, a golden dome, unveiled bride or noble Bedouin lady, described by the poet. It is as though she smiles to show stringed pearls, hailstone or flowers of chamomile. The locks of her hair hang black as night, while her beauty shames the light of dawn. Are you kidding me? Heaven. So the third girl joins the other women, and they finish unpacking the basket. They return the basket to the porter, and they pay him his wage. And the porter is just starstruck. Like, he is just mouth open, mouth breathing, staring at these women. And these women are like, hello, like, what are you doing here? You can go now. Did we not pay you? Like, come on. And then he just literally he can't take it. Like, he's just staring at them. So one of the sisters is like, here, give him like an extra dinar. And the porter finally says, no, listen, you've paid me enough. I'm genuinely like obsessed with you guys. Like, you have bewitched my soul. You have bewitched me with your beauty. Like, I love you. Like, I can't leave. Please, like, let me hang out with you guys. Like, you guys are so beautiful. And he recites all this beautiful poetry to them. And, you know, the sisters are like, hey, fine. Like, if you really want to spend time with us, you just recited all this beautiful poetry to us, I guess that you can hang out for a bit. So the third sister, the extra beautiful one, she starts setting up a little afternoon feast. She brings out the wine, she brings out snacks, she gets out the herbs, and she sets up a beautiful little spread for them. And they start drinking wine. They start getting tipsy. The porter keeps adding in, he keeps reciting poetry to them. So the sisters obviously are loving it. And so eventually, the first sister gets up and she jumps into the pool into the middle of the courtyard. She has taken her clothes off. She's stark naked and she's swimming in this pool. The porter is like stunned. This woman is so beautiful. She's playing in the pool. She stands up and she washes herself. She cleans herself with the water. And then she gets out and lays her head in the porter's lap. And she points to her vagina and she says, what do you call this? And he says, your womb. And she hits him on the back of the neck. And she said, have you no shame? No, what is it called? And he's like, your vagina. And she hits him again on the back of the neck. And she says, you're disgusting. And she says, he's like, is it a vulva? Like, he's like, I don't know. And so she keeps hitting him. She hits him again and again and again. And finally, he's like, I don't know, like, what do you call it? And she says, this is the mint of the dikes. And he's like, okay, like, he's just happy that this girl isn't hitting him anymore. Also, red flag, like, these girls are a little bit crazy, but I'm living for them. I love them. I'm trying to move in. So now the second sister gets up. She takes off all of her clothes. She jumps into the pool. She's swimming. She washes herself. She gets out and she lays her lap onto the she lays her head onto the porter's lap. And she goes through the same charade. She points at her private parts and she says, what do you call this? And he's like, your vagina? And she's like, you're so dirty. And she hits him on the back of the neck. And he's like, the mint of dikes? And she's like, no, you fucking idiot. She just keeps hitting him on the back of the neck. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know what you call your vagina. And she said, this is called husked sesame. shut up. I love these sisters. So finally the porter's like, okay. He's just happy they're not hitting him anymore. And sure enough, the third sister, the most beautiful sister, gets up. She takes her clothes off. She jumps in the pool. She swims. She bathes herself. She gets out and she lays her head on the porter's lap and she points to her private parts and she says, what do you call this? And he's like, I don't know. A vulva? And she starts hitting him on the back of the neck. He's like, husk sesame? She hits him on the back of the neck. He says, the mint of dikes? She hits him on the back of the neck. He can't guess it. He has no fucking idea. And finally, he asks, what is it called? And she says, this is the Khan of Abu Mansur. And he says, literally, praise Allah. Like, please, I'm just so happy that you're not hitting me. And eventually, the porter, who now is a little bit drunk, does the same thing. He takes his clothes off and he jumps in the pool and he comes out and he asks the sisters, he points at his pepper and he says, what do you call this? And they all laugh and they say, your zob? Zobai. I know a little Arabic. I know that word. They say, is that your zob? And he says, no. And they say, is that your penis? He says, no. And they say, okay, what is it? And he says, this is the mule that breaks the barriers, browses on the mint of the dikes, eats the husked sesame, and that passes the night in the Khan of Abu Mansur. And at this, the girls fall over laughing. They are so entertained. They think this porter is so fucking funny. And they just continue on throughout the night, getting pretty shwasty. They're drinking, they're eating, they're wasted, and eventually they hear a knock on the door. And so one of the sisters gets up, and outside she finds 3 men with very odd appearances. They seem to be traveling dervishes, as their beards are shaved, which at the time was not customary. At this time in Baghdad and the Persian empires, men would keep their beards long. So a man with a shaven beard would usually be a monk, a dervish. And these men say that they are new to this city, they know no one there, and there are no open inns for them to spend the night. And so they were wondering if the owners of this house would let them stay. And there's something extra weird about their appearance, which is all of them have only one eye. So the sister says, yes, you may come. I will let you in. However, what is important, and you must read what's over the archway of our doorway, which is, whoever talks about what does not concern him will hear what does not please him. So really what she's saying is, like, you cannot ask us about anything. You can come in, you can spend the night, but you can't ask about anything that isn't your business. So meanwhile, the porter has also asked to spend the night. He is having the best time. He wants to spend more time with these beautiful women. And they're like, fuck it. Like, they're at this point, they're like homies with the porter because he's been spewing poetry and playing along with their games. They're shwasty. So now they have these 3 new guests. They're all missing an eye. And now there's 4 men in their house, and they hear another knock at the door. This time, it's the Caliph himself, Harun al-Rashid. However, he is in disguise. He has gotten into the habit of dressing up in a disguise as a merchant and roaming the city at night with his vizier Jafar and Masrur, his executioner. He just loves going undercover and watching people in the kingdom out of curiosity, because obviously he is the man in the high tower. And he hears from the street like a party going on, and he wants to go in. So he decides to knock on the door, even though Jafar is like, listen, these people sound drunk. Like, we don't know who the fuck they are. I feel like we should not do this. I feel like this is a really bad idea. And the Caliph is like, shut the fuck up, Jafar. Knock on the door. So they knock on the door, and of course, one of the beautiful sisters comes to the door. And Jafar makes up this whole story. He says that we're traders from Tiberias and we've been in Baghdad for 10 days. We've sold all of our goods and we're staying at the merchant's khan. But tonight we were invited out by a colleague and we've stayed out too late and the khan is now closed. So they ask, can we please come in for the night while we wait for our khan to be open again? So the sister obliges them. They seem respectable. She lets them in, and they come in to find a very odd party, right? There's these three beautiful sisters in this gorgeous house, and now there's three random dervishes, all missing a left eye, and this random porter, and on top of that, these girls are like the hottest girls. So immediately the caliph is like, what the fuck? But they mention as they enter again that the men cannot ask anything that isn't their business. And so that's the only condition. They can come in, they can spend the night, they can drink, they can eat, but they cannot ask about anything. So the men agree to this. The men start eating, they start drinking, and the caliph says out loud that he is proposing to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. And because of that, one of the sisters gets up, she brings him an embroidered tablecloth, and she sets on top of it a piece of china and pours in willow flower water, and she adds a sugar lump. And the caliph thinks to himself, like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna reward her. These girls are being so good to me. I mean, obviously he's like also in love. I mean, we're all in love. These sisters are fucking iconic. So they pass the night away, they're eating, they're drinking, everything's fun until one of the sisters turns to her other sister and she says, okay, come, we must settle our debt. So the girls all agree, they get up and they leave the room, they come back, and they now start rearranging things. They clear the table, they move off all the food debris, they place perfumes on it in the middle of the room, and they move the men around. They have the dervishes sit on the bench at the edge of the room and the caliph on the other side. And one of the sisters turns to the porter and she says, your friendship doesn't really mean much. Like, why don't you be useful? So she says, stand up and help me. So out of the back room, one of the sisters brings out two black female dogs. In the book, they call them bitches, but they are two black female dogs. And these dogs have chains around their neck. So the sister instructs the porter to take them and to bring them to the center of the room. So the third sister, the most beautiful one, rolls her sleeves up and she picks up a whip. And she tells the porter to bring one of the dogs to her. And this sister starts hitting the dog with the whip as it cries and it howls. And after she finishes, she throws down the whip and she hugs the dog and she kisses it. She wipes its tears away. And then she has the porter bring the next dog. And so, of course, all of the men are freaked the fuck out. They didn't see the red flags before. They were fucking blinded by their hotness. But obviously the men are like shitting their pants. Like, this is terrifying. So now they watch this beautiful woman whip the second dog. The caliph is very concerned and he's unable to contain himself. He winks at Jafar. And Jafar is like, bruh, like, shut the fuck up. He like motions to him to like keep his mouth fucking shut, because these women were very clear, like, do not ask about anything that isn't your business. And obviously, like, these women are about it. Like, they are nuts. So now the third sister, the most beautiful one, turns to the second sister and she says, okay, it's your turn, get up. So the second sister gets up, she goes to the couch, and she pulls off her clothes and she falls to the floor. And the men notice that on her back are all of these scars that she has been whipped. And they're like, what the fuck is happening? So then she gets up and she fetches her next sister. And the same shit happens. This sister takes off all of her clothes. She falls to the floor crying. And they also notice that her back is covered in like whipping scars. So after witnessing all of this, the Caliph cannot take it. He cannot fucking stand it. He's also the fucking Caliph, so he has no chill. So he just goes ahead and blurts out, what the fuck is going on? Like, what are you guys doing? And the three sisters whip their heads around and they stare at him. And they're like, what do you not understand about what we told you? Like, you are not allowed to ask. And the Caliph is like, well, what you guys did was really distressing. Like, I'm pretty stressed out right now. And what you guys did was pretty fucking nuts. And he's like, I need to know. And the porter says, by Almighty Allah, like, love makes us all equal. I have grown up in Baghdad, but this is the only time in my life that I've ever entered this house, and how I came to be here with these girls is truly remarkable. These guys are fucking tripping. The men are just like, we need to know. But the sisters are very angry, and they said, we warned you not to ask what does not motherfucking concern you. So the women summon their slaves. So out of a trap door, 7 slaves pop out, and they are black eunuchs. They draw their swords, and the sisters command to tie up these men who talk too much and to bind them to one another. So the slaves do so. And now the guys are like, please, like, don't kill us. Typical. And one of the slaves says, just let us know and we will behead them. And so the sister says, okay, before you behead anyone, I want to know the stories of these men, specifically these 3 bizarre dervishes who are all missing a left eye. She's like, did you guys all lose your left eye together? And they said, no, we actually just met tonight. She says, were you born with one eye? And they say, no, all of us lost our eye in a freak accident. We are all princes from foreign kingdoms. We all met today randomly, and we truly have a crazy story. And so the sisters say, okay, before you tell your story, let us hear the story of the porter. And if you guys all have an interesting life story and tell us the truth, we will let you go. But everyone must tell your life story. And the porter says, listen, I literally am a porter. I'm from Baghdad. I have no wife. I have no life story. Today, I found myself in your house. That is it. And they're like, okay, if that's the truth, you can leave. And he says, I need to hear the story of these 3 men. And so the first dervish, the first man with a missing left eye and no beard, tells his story. And with that, the sun rises in the kingdom of Shariyar. And this is now the day that Scherazade will be beheaded. But the story, of course, is getting so good. And King Shariyar needs to know the stories of these 3 dervishes and how they lost their left eye. So as the king carries on his day of business, he grants Scheherazade another day to live so that he can hear the rest of the story. And with that, I will leave you there, and we will continue this story in the next episode. Oh my God, it's so good. It's so fucking good. It's so good. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast. This is a wild, wild world we live in. There is war, there is genocide, and there is suffering happening all over the planet. But I guess it's always been this way. I want to invite everyone to take seriously what it means to deconstruct colonialism, deconstruct violence, and deconstruct the cycles of oppression that we have been repeating for thousands and thousands of years. We could build a planet that is a paradise where we eat fruit with our titties out and swim in the beautiful waters of this earth. That being said, please like and subscribe to my podcast. It really helps. It really, really, really helps. I really appreciate you. I'm saying a prayer for all humanity right now, that we grow a little bit of emotional intelligence and choose kindness. I wish you the best. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night, beautiful morning, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Over and out.